the Geula, Habaim, those that come to the Geula will be then at that time. The coming of the Geula will be a situation will be Yashrish Yaakov, that the Shorish of Yaakov will become this Gala, and then afterwards he brings down Yashrish Yaakov, the rooting of Yaakov. Is talking about Torah mitzvahs that we're doing now, and we explained that why is it say in that order? Because even though the mitzvahs are what bring out the Geula, but still in all, he still says the Geula first, because it's the identical Hamshacha. It's the idea of what comes down, the Hamshacha of Torah mitzvahs. That is the very same Gilui of the Shorish HaNeshama that will become revealed when Mashiach comes, as opposed to the other idea that the Ishapchacha Shoichel and that we're doing now is not the identical thing of Mashiach's times, because Mashiach's times there won't be any darkness. So in this pirush of Aboim Yashrish Yaakov, it's identical to each other, and therefore we could speak about the goal first. Yet still in all, in Ois Vav, the Rebbe is still going to focus on the fact that he emphasizes the Geula as the first thing and not as a result of the Torah mitzvahs that we're doing. Line 14, page 9, Ois Vav. We need to understand, according to the explanation that we just now said, that you have the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs is its goal and its purpose, is in the Geulam. Hashaych is the Kima mitzvahs Achshav, Pirush Hashedi Lagula Pirush Rishon. What's the connection between Yashrish Yaakov in the second explanation? That's referring to the fulfillment of the mitzvahs that we're doing before the Geula, and the connection with the first explanation that Haboim Yashrish Yaakov is referring to the revelation of the Yidden that will take place Haboim when there's the Geula. Who be'inyan the Yashrish Yaakov. The connection between them is because Yashrish Yaakov. What's that mean that the Yashrish Yaakov is a connection? The idea of the drawing down of the root now, that this Hamshacha will be in a way that's revealed. In other words, that the Geula is the revelation of the Hamshacha that's now. So it's one continuum, it's one idea, it's one concept. Again, not like the case where the other pool of mitzvahs, the transforming of the darkness, where that's something separate than the darkness not existing, the tumah not existing when Mashiach comes. But still in all, he says in line 18, the fact that the Maimer says right away at the beginning, even before he brings in that the Targum Yonason explains Haboim is talking about the gathering of the Golos, and the in other words, gathering from the Golos to the Geula, and Yashrish Yaakov is called about this Yelidun Yisrael, the birth and the coming down of the Yidden's Shorish. Right away, he explains that Targum Yonason Mefarish Hapaskal Geula. That's his first introduction to this. That the Targum Yonason says, you know what? This pasuk is out to tell you about Geula. In other words, that's the whole flow of the Maimer, the direction. Even though in the second explanation he doesn't explain it on the Geula. In the second explanation, it's referring to the Torah mitzvahs that we're doing prior to the Geula. So. Moving, it's understood Shezau Ikra Pirush. It's understood that the main Pirush is, even though he brought two Pirushim, the main Pirush is the idea of the Geula. This it's indicated as Esha Pirush the Yashrish Yaakov Koyal Kima Mitzvahs Achshav, that explanation that Yaakov is rooted, that we said the rooting of Yaakov is talking about the second Pirush, that's talking about fulfillment of mitzvahs before the Geula. It's coming following and as a continuation to the explanation of the Targum Yonason that's talking about the Geula. Why? because fulfillment of mitzvahs now is like a continuation. It's secondary to the idea of geula. So which is it? What is primary in the end? Is the primary consideration the mitzvahs that we do before the geula, or is the primary consideration the result and the geula itself? So for that he explains, line 26, last paragraph on the page, we could say, the fact that in the Maimer he prefaces that the explanation is going about the redemption is because all matters are derived from Torah. Like it says, that Hashem looked into Torah and he created the world. So it doesn't just mean the world, the physical world, but everything and all our avodas and all inyanim are all derived from Torah. Therefore, Torah energizes and vitalizes whatever we have to do. And through in Torah, like in the Maimer of the Tzemach Tzedek, we're prefacing the idea of geula, of redemption. So that brings about also in the world that the geula should be much sooner. That's a very Yesodistic type of point. It's a very crucial and vital type of point that the Rebbe brings out over here in a very spiritual manner. That why did the Tzemach Tzedek insert this first in the Maimer? To rush and to quicken and to bring about the geula. That's the first thing. When you say it first in Torah, that speeds it up. Well, to add, this is not just because in Torah it says first, but because who is saying it? When a Yid, and how much more so, a Nasi, a leader, thinks about something good, top of page 10. So his thought affects that, so it'll be in actuality. That the Tzemach Tzedek stated, and the Friedrich Rebbe made it known that if you think good, it will be good. So we see the power of thinking in a positive way. So the same way, by thinking first about the geula, having that uppermost in our mind, especially by a Rebbe, that brings it to fruition quicker. This sipur that my father-in-law, in other words, the Friedrich Rebbe, related that the Tzemach Tzedek told the statement "Tracht gut wird sein gut" to one of the Chassidim. And through the thought of the Chassid, this actually accomplished that it was good. So you have even a Chassid's thinking good, it helped. In the footnote on the previous page, he says when he tells the story that when the Chassid heard this from the Tzemach Tzedek, so the Chassid said, "Was helft mein Trachten? What does it help my thinking? Ihr Rebbe soll trachten. You Rebbe should think good. Eier Trachten can help, and your thought can help." So we see, in other words, even though the Tzemach Tzedek told him, you should think good, but obviously there is room to say that the Tzemach Tzedek's or the Rebbe's thoughts impacted even more. So therefore, this gives more power and emphasis to the fact that by the Tzemach Tzedek thinking and bringing it forth, the geula first thing, even though it seemingly should be the second stage of what the Tzemach Tzedek is trying to explain, is to impact and speed it up to be much sooner. And then the Rebbe adds to this, line 7, could say, why did my father-in-law have to add this story, not just saying that the Tzemach Tzedek said and saying Tracht gut wird sein gut. No, that he actually related the story and how by thinking good it actually occurred that way. What's the importance of relating the entire story. Through the fact that it was actually good in that story of the Chassid of Tzemach Tzedek, so this affects that also now in the physical world, that the Tzemach Tzedek brought this down the physical world, that now when we think good, it should affect the good in the physical world as well, not just in that case with that Chassid. And the Rebbe gives an example. Like similar to what's known, that the Nevi'im did also certain actions in the physical corresponding to their Nevuah. For example, like it says in the Haftarah a few weeks ago, that they took two pieces of wood, and on one piece of wood they wrote down Yosef, on one piece of wood they write Yehuda, and they put it together, and there becomes one. So that's showing the union and the joining of the two kingdoms of Yehuda and Yosef, that the 10 Shvatim and the other 2 Shvatim will reunite when Mashiach comes, because by having a physical manifestation of the Nevuah, that adds Ki Ayidei through doing a physical action appropriate to their nevuah, this manifests and draws down that the nevuah has to do with the physicality of the world. So the same thing in concerning what the story with the Tzemach Tzedek was, that the Frierdiker Rebbe related. Yeshloim, line 13, he says, we could say the Chashar Machshava Ba B'Dibur U'Mekolshkim B'Maisa. When we say tracht good wird sein good, think good, it will be good. So if the good thought comes down in speech, and how much more so that the good thought comes down in action, it affects it even more so. There will be no cases that I've been told people to already do a meal of celebration and of thanks for somebody's healing or whatever, even though the person was still sick. In other words, the whole idea is bringing it down into the physical is even a stronger manifestation of the Tracht Gut wird sein gut, because you're actually doing an action. So now, in a similar vein, it's not just that the Tzemach Tzedek was putting Geula first and on the top of the whole situation, but also how much more so in our case. The noise was in addition to the fact that the thought of the Tzemach Tzedek, to first say the explanation that Haboim Yashrish Yaakov is referring to the redemption, even though in the order of things, first the explanation that it's talking about mitzvahs, it should precede the redemption. And the fact that Ba B'Ksav Maisa, the fact that it came down in writing, which is action, Hu Gam Cheluk B'Torah, it's also a part of the Torah, and therefore, since it's also a part of the Torah, so it makes, we have both things. We have Torah, which Torah is very, very powerful, because like we said before, Hashem looked in Torah, and then the world was created. And also, we're connecting it with world. He's writing it down in action. So by having the two things together, we are speeding up the Geula that should actually come earlier, just like in the Torah that he's writing, the Geula was the first thing that he wrote about before the cause of the Geula, which is the mitzvahs. Line 19, through speaking in these topics, we should quicken and speed this up even more so than even what the fact that Tzemach Tzedek wrote this down in his Maimer sped it up. And even more so it's sped up, especially through the avoid of spreading Yiddishkeit in general and spreading the wellsprings specifically. Spreading the wellsprings of Chassidus is a close preparation. In other words, it's the same theme, it's the same idea of what will actually occur when Mashiach comes, that the earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem like the waters covers the sea. So therefore, in a similar vein, like the waters covering the sea of knowledge of Hashem, our spreading the knowledge of Hashem, spreading the well springs of Chassidus, is also in a similar vein. Which that statement, that pasuk, is the conclusion of the Sefer of the Rambam Bal Hailul the Chav Tevis, whose yahrzeit is on the 20th of Tevis. This idea that the earth is filled with the knowledge of Hashem is connected with the beginning of a Sefer, which he starts off that that Yisoida is Vamud HaChacham is the basis of all knowledge and wisdom, is Leida Sheyesh Shamatzarishin, to know that there is a first existence, which is connected with the idea that the earth will be filled with this knowledge. So the first mitzvah, the first idea that Rambam begins is the knowledge of Hashem and the belief in Hashem and the awareness of Hashem, and that is what he concludes with is what Mashiach is going to be about. Mashiach's times is that idea. This is also connected with the Sefer, the Holy Tanya. It's the book of the Alter Rebbe, whose yahrzeit is on the 24th of Tevis, which in the Sefer Tanya is barum in Inyanim Diyas Hashem, the knowledge, Inyanim matters of knowledge and awareness of Hashem. It's very interesting. In footnote 2, he analyzes and says, in the Sefer Tanya, there is the Likutei Amorim, which is primarily about service of Hashem. Derech Haruko Ktsara Echu Karev Ma'od, that how it's very close to you to love Hashem. But even while the main emphasis of the first part of Tanya is about the service of Hashem, and the second part of Tanya is about knowing Sharich V'Emunah, the belief in Hashem, the oneness of Hashem. Still on all, even in the first part of Tanya, there's also the topics having to do with the knowledge of Hashem. So this is the common denominator between the Alter Rebbe and the Rambam, that they are both about the knowledge of Hashem and what it leads to, and it expresses itself finally in the coming of Mashiach. So he says, Yiratzah should be the will of Hashem, Shizchusim Shabali Lula, that the merit of those whose yahrzeit it is on Chav and Chavdal Tevis, the Rambam and Alter Rebbe, Shekiptzu Veliktu B'Sifreim Hanal Kol Inyoni HaTorah, that they collected and gathered in their above-mentioned Sforim of the Rambam and the Tanya all matters of Torah. Sefer Mishnah Torah, first of all, the Rambam calls it Mishnah Torah. Why does he call it Mishnah Torah? Shemekabetz Kol Halachs Nigla Torah. The Rambam collected all the laws and all the rules of the revealed part of the Torah. The Sefer L'Chutei Amorim Tanya Malaket Kol Anyonim, the Pnimis HaTorah, and the Sefer L'Chutei Amorim of Tanya that collects of all the matters of the inner part of the Torah. V'gam Hasforim Torah Oir V'L'Chutei Torah, also this form of the Alter Rebbe of Torah L'Chutei Torah Shebehem Nilketu HaMamorim HaIkrim Shad Morazakim Kvish Nizra Idei Tzemach Tzedek. And then was collected the primary Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe, the way they were arranged and organized by Tzemach Tzedek. And he says in the footnote, like we find that the Mamorim of Torah Oir and L'Chutei Torah were collected from a selection of 2,000 Mamorim that Tzemach Tzedek reviewed before picking out these Mamorim. And then, so by all of this, the yahrzeit of the Rambam and the yahrzeit of the Alter Rebbe, it'll make quicker, and it'll speed up even more so the fulfillment of the promise, what's foretold in the Haftorah v'atem to look to le'echad echad Yisrael, you will be collected one by one, the children of Yisrael, like the HaKadosh Baruch Hu atzmai, that through Hashem himself, like it says that Hashem himself will take people by the hand, Shebekarev mamish yelak this kulanu, that speedily mamish you will collect all of us, v'neilach kulanu yachad l'Eretz HaKodesh, and all of us will go together to the Holy Land, k'mishatir bar chava, the way it'll be, the Holy Land in this broad way, Meaning, instead of, like we said, like we say a lot of times, just the lands of the 7 nations, it'll be broadened to include also the 10 nations of Keni, Knizi, Kadmoni, Ammon, Moav, and Edom. Yarchav Hashem Elkeches Gevulcha, that Hashem will broaden your boundaries. V'sham Gufa, and in Eretz Yisrael itself, where will we be gathered to? Yerushalayim, Beis Hamikdash, Yibana, B'mehera, V'yameinu Mamish, that will be rebuilt speedily in our days, Mamish, and therefore we will have this all as a result and connected to this concept of the Pnimius HaTorah, which is the exact same inyan like what's going to be in Mashiach times. In other words, similar to what he said, that the mitzvahs draw down an oil from above, and that very oil that we're drawing down with mitzvahs is going to become revealed when Mashiach comes, akin to the idea of schar mitzvah, that the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, meaning that when Mashiach comes, we'll actually have that expression of the light. The same thing, the direct result of our spreading Pnimius HaTorah will result in the actual spread of the knowledge of Hashem, which is spreading of the inner part of the Torah is. The Rebbe always wants to find this similarity and the corresponding idea of how we find the same thing and the same ideas of what we do now reflected in Mashiach's times. So therefore, really the primary focus of this Maimer was not about the other aspect, the transformative nature of mitzvahs, the idea that we transform the darkness of our body and our nefesh habahamis and our part of the world, and how much more so when we're transforming the darkness of Golus. But here, primarily, the focus in this Maimer is the similarity between what we're doing before Mashiach comes versus the revelation of Mashiach's times, which is Bachlal, that mitzvahs draw down oir, and the more bittul, the better the mitzvahs, the greater the oir, and the ultimate thing of that revelation of that light is when Mashiach comes. And in the similar vein, the preparation and what brings about the coming of Mashiach is Hafatzas HaMayonos Chutza, spreading the wellsprings of Chassidus outward, which idea of the wellsprings of Chassidus is the knowledge of Hashem. In other words, by spreading the knowledge of Hashem outwards, we attain and we bring about that knowledge of godliness that will fill the earth, like the Rambam says at his conclusion of his whole entire Sefer, which is, again, sorry for repeating it, we see almost like an overarching theme. It begins with the knowledge of Hashem and it concludes with that. In other words, where are we headed with this? Just like we are doing now Hafat Samayonis, and it will conclude and it will end and result in the knowledge of Hashem throughout the entire world.